What is up guys, my name is Ignas, welcome back to the channel. Jenny Harrington and Josh Brown are CNBC contributors, and a year back they made a bet if Intel could outperform NVIDIA over a course of 1 year. Fast forward to September of 2021, and Intel is up 7% while NVIDIA is up 77%. So Josh won by a mile, and even though Intel is actually cheaper on paper, he explains why NVIDIA had way more growth.
Look, I don't disagree with you that valuation matters, but honestly, if it were that easy to just look at EBITDA to enterprise value or PE ratio, everybody would be rich. What's required, especially in technology, maybe more so than any other sector, what's required in technology is an imagination. So there's all these guys walking around Wall Street. They're like, oh, I'm a numbers guy. Oh, that's great. Every number that you could locate, I could find too with a Google search. There's no edge. Like anybody could see that Intel is cheaper. Anybody could see that Intel is cheaper than NVIDIA on every metric. What's required is imagination, creativity. And many of the types of people who come into Wall Street don't have it.
So to get better results, you actually need more than just a good price-to-earnings ratio. By the end of the discussion, Jenny explains why she is still sticking with Intel even today. I will leave a link for the full video in the description below if you are interested. But now let's do our own analysis. So I've picked another semiconductor name, and for today's comparison we have NVIDIA, ticker symbol NVDA, Taiwan Semiconductor, TSM, and Intel, ticker INTC. To make the comparison possible, we will be looking into 8 different factors: last 4 quarterly earnings results, annual revenue growth, analysts' price targets, forward price-to-earnings ratio, price-to-sales ratio, return on equity, current ratio, and dividend yield. The best company under each factor will get a point, so it is possible to have from 0 to 8 points, and in the end the stock with the most points will be considered the winner of this comparison. I understand that sitting through a 10-minute video could be exhausting, so I'll just bring the results up for you to take a look into straight away. These are here the results, and from our factors NVIDIA gets 2 points, Taiwan Semiconductor 3 and Intel 4. This means that with 4 points, Intel is considered the winner of this comparison. If you want to check how we got here, then continue on with the analysis. The first factor are the last 4 quarterly earnings results. When a company reports earnings, they are compared to expectations of analysts. So earnings can either beat expectations, meet them, or miss them. We will consider that beating expectations is a +1, meeting +0.5, and missing 0. Then we sum the results up to a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 4, and in the end the stock with the highest sum gets a point for this factor. So these are quarterly earnings for NVIDIA, and Q4 of 2020 beat expectations, Q1 of 2021 beat, Q2 beat, and Q3 of 2021 beat. So with 4 beats in quarterly earnings, we get a sum of 4. Earnings for Taiwan Semiconductor and Q3 of 2020 beat expectations, Q4 beat, Q1 of 2021 beat expectations, and Q2 met. So with 3 beats and 1 meet in quarterly earnings, we get a sum of 3.5. Quarterly earnings for Intel and Q3 of 2020 met expectations, Q4 beat, Q1 of 2021 beat expectations, and Q2 beat. So with 3 beats and 1 meet in quarterly earnings, we again get a sum of 3.5. Results for the last 4 quarterly earnings factor are in the table, and with a sum of 4, NVIDIA gets the first point. Second factor is the annual revenue growth. As investors, we want to find that the revenues of a company are on a steady increase. We will take a look into the revenues of the 4 most recent years and compare them one by one. If revenue was on the increase from one year to the next, we will consider it as a +1, and if it was on the decrease, it will be a +0. Then we sum the results up to a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 3, and in the end the stock with the highest sum gets a point for this factor. So these are annual revenues for NVIDIA, and going into 2019 there was an increase to $11.72 billion US, then into 2020 we had a decrease to $10.92 billion, and into 2021 there was an increase to $16.68 billion. So with 2 increases and 1 decrease in annual revenues, we get a sum of 2. Annual revenues for Taiwan Semiconductor, and into 2018 there was an increase to 1.03 trillion Taiwan dollars, then into 2019 we had an increase to 1.07 trillion, and into 2020 we had another increase to 1.30 34 trillion Taiwan dollars. So with 3 increases in annual revenues, we get a sum of 3. Annual revenues for Intel, and going into 2018 there was an increase to 70.85 billion US dollars. Then into 2019 we had an increase to 71.97 billion, and into 2020 there was another increase to 77.87 billion dollars. So with 3 increases in annual revenues, we get a sum of 3. Results for the annual revenue growth factor are in the table, and with sums of 3, both Taiwan Semiconductor and Intel each gets a point. Factor number 3 are the analysts' price targets. As potential investors, we want to find that the current share price is under the average price target of analysts. If it is under the average, we will consider that there is still more upside available, and the stock that is furthest away from the average analyst target to the lower side gets a point for this factor. So for NVIDIA we have 41 price target of analysts. They range from the lows of $110 to the highs of $300 per share. The average is at $230.45, and the current share price is at $221.21. This means that there is still 4.2% room for the current price to reach the average target of analysts. For Taiwan Semi, we have 9 price targets of analysts. They range from the lows of $120 to the highs of $207 per share. The average is at $143.01, and the current share price is at $114.67. This means that there is still around 24.7% of room for the current price to reach the average target of analysts. For Intel, we have 38 price targets of analysts. They range from the lows of $40 to the highs of $85 per share. The average is at $62.06, and the current share price is at $54.47. So there is still around 13.9% room for the current price to reach the average target of analysts. Results for the analysts' price targets factor are in the table, and with most room for growth, Taiwan Semi gets another point. Next factor is the forward price to earnings ratio. It's calculated by taking the current share price and dividing it by the estimated future earnings per share. This is the standard price to earnings calculation, with the difference that earnings here are predicted by analysts. So in the end, the stock with the lowest forward price to earnings ratio gets a point for this factor. For NVIDIA, we have a forward price to earnings at 44.44. Forward price to earnings for Taiwan Semi is at 23.98. And Intel has a forward price to earnings at 12.06. Forward price to earnings ratios are in the table, and with the lowest value, Intel gets another point. Factor number 5 is the price to sales ratio. It is calculated by taking the company's market cap and dividing it by the trailing 12 months worth of sales. The formula suggests to be looking for a company with a low market cap and a high result in sales. So in the end, the stock with the lowest price to sales ratio gets a point for this factor. NVIDIA has a price to sales at 23.9. Price to sales for Taiwan Semi is at 10.95. And Intel has a price to sales at 2.84. Price to sales ratios are in the table, and with the lowest value, a point goes to Intel. Next factor is return on equity. The percentage here suggests how well the company is managed and if money from investors are handled efficiently. So in the end, the stock with the highest return on equity percentage gets a point for this factor. NVIDIA has a return on equity at 40.38%. Return on equity for Taiwan Semi is at 29.65%. And Intel has a return on equity at 22.19%. Return on equity percentages are in the table, and with the highest value, NVIDIA gets another point. Factor number 7 is the current ratio. It is calculated by taking the current assets and dividing them by the current liabilities. As investors, we want to find that the company is able to cover its debts with assets, but also that they're actually being leveraged. So in the end, the stock with the highest current ratio under 3 gets a point for this factor. NVIDIA has the current ratio at 5.8. Current ratio for Taiwan Semi is at 2.05, and Intel has the current ratio at 1.99. Current ratios are in the table, and with the highest value under 3, Taiwan Semi gets one more point. The last factor is the dividend yield. A high dividend yield may suggest that the company is sharing profits with shareholders, and that is a great passive income source that we as investors are looking for. So in the end, the stock with the highest dividend yield percentage gets a point for this factor. NVIDIA is paying an annual dividend of 16 cents per share, which is a yield of 0.07%. Annual dividend for Taiwan Semi is $1.83 per share, and that is a yield of 1.59%. And Intel pays an annual dividend of $1.39 per share, which is a yield of 2.55%. Dividend yields are in the table, and with the highest percentage, Intel gets 1 more point. So that was it. If you got value or new ideas, then make sure to push that thumbs up, it helps the channel a lot. If you're looking for the results, you need to go back quite a bit because I've placed those just before the analysis. Now I have a question for you, which semiconductor stocks are you buying into? Share your best picks in a comment below. If you're interested to know exactly when I buy or sell any stock, then consider memberships. By becoming a member, you will get access to Discord, where I share my stock watchlist and all the buys and sells exactly when I do them. This could be a great option to track my moves closely. Last week we did a stock comparison on 3 large pharmaceutical names, and there is also an update for our technical analysis and eToro stock trading portfolio series. If you are interested in any of these, then click on a video currently on the screen. And that was it from my side, thank you for watching, and I will be seeing y'all in the next one.